Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside, of course, each and every week is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are, of course, the hosts of the Women of Golf Show. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing well. First obvious question, are you up in Buffalo or are you on travel?
I'm in Buffalo, traveling.
Well, that sounds good. All right, well, Cindy, before we start, we got a great show today. Of course, we've got Sue Wieger is going to be joining us here from Arizona here in just a moment. But let me just remind everybody, of course, we are live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network. And, of course, best way to find us is go to blogtalkradio.com and just type in Women of Golf up in the search key, and you will find us there. And some other great ways to tune into the show is go to iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, TuneIn.com, and now TalkStreamLive.com, and you can find us there. The other great way to connect with Cindy and I is you're welcome to call into the show live on Tuesday mornings. The number to call is area code 347-945-5855, or you can reach out to either Cindy or I at cindymillergolf.com. And you can also reach out to me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. All right, as I mentioned, we got a very great guest this morning. Let me tell you a little bit about her, and then Cindy will bring her on. Of course, our special guest this morning is Sue Wieger. She has a master's in education. She's a #1 best-selling international author, a motivational speaker, and peak performance coach. And she's also a 20-year-plus veteran of the LPGA as a Class A professional. And she's also the owner of Wieger Consulting, LLC. She's got a great new book. We're going to talk a little bit about that and some other things this morning. Her book, of course, is called Golf, The Last 6 Inches, and it's a #1 international bestseller. So let's welcome Cindy, our very special guest this morning, Sue Wieger.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ted and Cindy. How are you?
We're doing great.
Yes.
We're doing fantastic. And thank you for joining us this morning. I know it's early in Arizona. We appreciate you getting up a little extra early to join us this morning on the Women of Golf Show.
Oh, I'm just honored and grateful to be here. So it's a beautiful day in Arizona. We're just enjoying our fall weather here.
Yeah, it's a little. It's pretty nice here in Florida as well. And Cindy, I know you're up in Buffalo. It's getting a little bit cooler there, but we can't complain. We're all loving this great game of golf. Let me just a quick side note before Sue, before we start. Congratulations out to Susie Whaley, of course, the new president of the PGA of America. It was officially made here just a few days ago, so we want to send our congratulations. Of course, Susie was on the show just a few weeks ago, and we just want to send, on behalf of Cindy and I, our congratulations on officially becoming the PGA of America's president. So congratulations, Susie. All right, Sue, I'm going to start off, and before we get into, we're going to certainly talk about your book a little bit this morning, but I wanted to start somewhere first that maybe will help sort of set things up a little bit. You founded a mental peak performance program called Change Your Brain, Change Your Game. Tell us a little bit about that program.
Yeah, the program is and talks about the state of your game, and the state of your game is basically your mindset and how you approach your game. We talk about. I interview a lot of obviously players and professionals, and I always ask them, what part of the game do you work on? And it's funny that the amateurs work on their skill sets and the professionals work on the skill set and their mindset. And what I found is it's lacking in some of the instructional pieces of, especially on the amateur side, is just the mental side. So change your brain, change your game is just that. It talks about the state of your game, and there's 3 factors within the state. And we talk about, what do you feel like emotionally, physically, and mentally. So I use what's called a little bit of a triad, and a triad within your state is focus, language, and physiology. It's the fastest way to change your state. So the focus part is, well, what are you focused on? Are you focused on what's going right with your game, or are you focused on what's going wrong with your game? And a lot of times we talk about when people focus, when they're focusing on the golf course, are they focusing on what they want, or are they focusing on what they don't want? Like, for example, don't go in the bunker, don't go in the water type of thing. So that's where we talk about the focus. The physiology is your emotion is created by motion. So the fastest way to change your state is through your body. So if you want to feel depressed, the easiest way to do that is plump your shoulders, have some not so good self-talk. You can definitely tell as you watch players when they play golf, just by watching them, what their body language is telling them. So in regards to the negativity that's coming out of them. And then the last piece, of course, is self-talk, which is your language. What kind of internal language are you having, or even external language? What do you hear yourself saying? What I train my players is during the pre-shot and even the post-shot, they have to think about that triad. What are they focused on? Are they focused on what was good about the shot or what was bad about the shot, for example? And like in the pre-shot, what's the body going to feel like? When you walk up, are you going to feel confident, or are you going to feel not so confident? And we talk about, so the other aspect, again, is self-talk. What kind of conversations are you having in with your head? So that's what we talk about. That's where change your brain, change your games come up.
Right. And I think, Sue, you'd probably agree that a lot of amateur golfers, as you pointed out, think about a lot of different things on the golf course, and I think they're probably most guilty of thinking about swing thoughts and technique and that sort of thing when they're up there over the shot. They're thinking, okay, is my elbow in the right spot? Am I swinging it back properly? And that's obviously much different, as you said, than what the pros are thinking about. They're thinking about, executing a specific shot that they have in mind, and they've got their target in mind, and they're blocking out all of the trouble. Whereas, as you indicated, that a lot of the amateurs are thinking about a million different things, and I think that's what sort of gets them stymied a little bit out in the golf course. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree, because I think amateurs have a difficult time making a decision, because they're stuck in that, like you said, cycle of swing thoughts. They can't make a decision. And when you can't make a decision, just like in life, when you can't make a decision, you kind of feel lost. And there's no direction to that. There's no path to it. And so that's what they're getting. They're like, well, I didn't get what I expected. Well, really, you're thinking about, their internal focus is all on their swing thoughts, and there's no way the body can actually relate to the target. And so there's no visualization to the target. Like you said, with professionals, they're thinking about the ball flight. They're thinking about where they want the ball to end up.
Right.
And so, it's totally different.
Well, let me ask you just a follow-up question about that then, and then Cindy, I'm going to throw it over to you. So let's say, in this example, you're working with a student, on the practice facility, the practice tee, if you will, and you're working on specific techniques. Now, all of a sudden, you want to take them out on the golf course for a playing lesson. What do you do or say to them to now say, okay, now it's time to shut the brain down from what you learned over here on the practice tee? In other words, I don't want you thinking about all these things we just talked about. Now I want you to focus on the task at hand. How do you transition them from tee, if you will, or practice tee, out onto the golf course?
Well, I think it's important that we determine, what's the focus, in the sense that, if we're looking at, let's say there's somebody that's working on trying to get rid of their slice a little bit, and we work on a little bit of the mechanics.
Right.
So we work on a little bit of the mechanics, but before we leave that tee box or that practice range, we actually go through the mental process of, okay, so what are we going to think about? What are we going to focus on? And you can have a swing thought, but we can't have 20. And so we teach
Right.
them the pre-shot routine. The pre-shot routine is saying, okay, because we have to balance out the brain, because if you're thinking about your swing thoughts and your skills, usually you're on the left side of your brain, and that's and that's okay behind the shot, thinking about what I want in regards to, like the yardage and the wind and all of that kind of thing. But then when we're about ready to execute the shot, we make the decision, and we're going to step up. We're going to trust ourselves. We're going to trust our skills. We're going to feel the shot. We're going to see the shot, and then we're just going to do the shot. So I think it's really important that players, if they're working on the mechanics and then they're transitioning onto the golf course, it's very important that they're actually working on that pre-shot routine right there on the practice facility before they go play.
Right. That's a great point. Cindy, I know you might have a question or two here.
I think that one of the hardest things for students to understand is they need to be able to plan a shot, and they need to be taught how to make clear decisions. And I think that when we just rake and hit on the range, they're not learning what components need to compromise or what happens on the golf course and how they can mess up, if you will, everything they've just been working on. So I think there's two parts to this, and I know that we have to help them simplify the process so they can produce results. Do you have a system that you teach them? I know Lynn and Pia have Think Box, Play Box, which, we all have some sort of way to teach the same thing. Tell us what you do.
Yes. The Think Box and Play Box from Lynn and Pia is excellent, and I like to get away from the word of thinking, so I call basically the Think Box a caddy box. So the caddy box is, behind the shot. What kind of conversation would you have with your caddy at this time? Mm-hmm. Because, I give them an example. You're not going to talk to your caddy about your grip or your posture or your stance or the ball position. What kind of conversations would you have with your caddy? Your caddy is going to ask questions like, okay, well, we've got 125 yards. The ball is sitting down a little bit. There's not too much wind. The center of the green is here. That kind of a conversation. So it's more engaged with the target and less engaged with this, if you may call it, the skill mechanics of the shot. And then in the sense that, and then they step in and they make that decision once they pull the club, and they're like, okay, I've made that decision. And then be decisive and step into that. And then I teach them, I have what's called a little internal scorecard exercise, and we go through this process. And when they step into the shot, I like to ask them, it's like, oh, are you thinking positive or are you thinking negative? And we have a series of, on the practice range we do this, and they hit 10 shots. And they come back, and I have a little scorecard, and they'll write down just plus or negative, and they'll rate the shot. So, for example, they step into the shot, they go ahead and execute a shot, and then I ask them, okay, how would you rank that from 1 to 10? And then we just chart it. And then I say, okay, what was your thoughts before you drew the club back? Was it a positive shot, or a positive thought, or a negative, or was it no thought? Mm-hmm. Because we want to start looking at their patterns, because what we find is that most of the time when I've ever done this, my research is telling me is that it's either you're being neutral, or if you're being positive, you get better ranked shots. Well, that makes sense. Right. Versus when you're standing up there going, okay, because I tell them, I said, if you're thinking mechanically, can that be positive or can that be negative? What would you think if you're standing over a shot? And Cindy, have you stood over shots before and you're thinking kind of negative, or you weren't committed to it? What kind of outcome would you get?
Yeah, well, you're going to get a terrible outcome. So I think where it comes from is there's doubt.
Yes.
And fear and apprehension. So that in my opinion, means that I didn't make a clear decision that I was able to commit to. So it's not the fact that I have doubt and fear and apprehension. It's the fact that you didn't take the 2 extra seconds and say, is this the smartest play for me from this position? So we want to make sure that we make, good decisions within my realistic expectations of my skill set, right? If I was trying to carry it over the water and it was 210, 1 out of 50, I'm going to pull that off. Well, that's kind of a dumb shot, right?
Right.
Or 1 out of 1,000. So, again, that's my fault for not making a good decision within my skill set. So I
Correct.
don't believe that most people take, and including me, I'm busted right here, stop and ask yourself, what's the smartest play from this position?
Yes, and I think that many times when you're and we hear the word try, so when we step in over the shot and we stand up there and the word try, when I hear a player say, well, I'm going to try to hit the shot, I'm going to stop them and I'm going to ask them, is the word try, is that a committed word? It's not. It's non-committal. So they have to be careful with that language. And I said, what if you just walked up and say, I trust myself over this, or I trust this 6-iron, or I trust myself? That's more of an empowering word where, again, it's going to help them clarify that decision. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, I can do this. I am going to do this. So I teach my players a lot with the I am statements, and we do an exercise where they have to write down 10 I am statements, and the I am, and it doesn't have to necessarily be with golf. It just has to be the statement, the wording after the I am is like I'm a loving wife, or I'm a loving friend, and I'm a loving daughter, or they have to be 100% true and positive. And I have them do that for 5 days, and then I have them go stand in front of a mirror and talk to themselves with those I am statements to find out what's really true about who they are, and they take that authenticity into their golf because they feel better about themselves, they know who they are, and then I think that's where they can trust themselves a lot more.
Yeah, Sue, and I agree with that. I think that it also boils down to, especially with a lot of our amateur golfers, that there's a lack of confidence. They're not confident over the shot for whatever reason. Again, as Cindy pointed out, their skill set, maybe isn't quite there yet. So when they get over a shot, instead of, really thinking about it and saying, okay, Cindy had suggested, instead of trying to hit over the water that's 210, maybe I need to lay up before the water and make a better club selection, a better choice. So instead of really thinking the process through, they tend to sort of rush it and just, I'll just grab this club, and as you said, I'll just try to hit it over the water. And if it goes over, great. If it doesn't, well, then I'll just take a drop and move on. So they don't really think the process clearly. And I think that comes from, obviously, again, our amateur golfers that haven't played as much, they haven't developed that sort of inner confidence yet. So I like what you just mentioned about really trying to help them establish that, so that when they do step up and are faced with some of these different challenges, they're going to be much more confident because they've been sort of doing that self-talk, talking to themselves, and doing some of these skills, if you will, or developing them, and making a much more informed decision when the time does come that they do want to play. And I think, setting them up with sort of a pre-shot routine for every shot can help them also achieve some of that as well. Cindy, do you have another question, or do you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, you also, Sue, you also host some multi-day mind and body golf retreats international. What are some other things that are involved in those retreats if somebody was interested in maybe joining in?
Well, we do the mind and body. So we do the mind has to do with the mental side. So we find out why they're playing. We definitely talk about the state, which is the focus, the language, and the physiology. We go through these exercises. So just in a sense, the first thing that we do is we actually go out and play like 6 to 9 holes with no instruction. and I give them a journal, and the first thing we're going to talk about is all I want you to do is write down what you say to yourself over shots, or maybe before shots, or in between shots, because we want to see what our pattern is in regards to self-talk. And 9 times out of 10, it's not positive. It's like, wow, I had no. And we come back in, and then we talk about that and say, well, what did you notice? What was the focus of the language? Was it, what did you hear yourself saying? Like, well, I'm so stupid, or I'm going to try to hit the shot, or what did you hit? For example, after you hit a good shot, what did you say to yourself? Most people don't accept or anchor the goodness. Most people take in the negative, meaning they'll own the negative shots, but they won't own the good shots. And we have to teach them to flip that, because as we know that what you're anchoring is what you're putting in your subconscious. And if you pour in, what I call, negative oil into your car, that car's not going to run very well sooner or later, because that's what you're getting. You're getting more of. So that's one of the things that we do with the retreats. The body part is we just teach basic functional body movement to help them understand what the body needs to do to make an efficient and a sequential golf swing. And then we go out and play. So we do a lot of self-management. We do a lot of confidence. We talk about focus. And, again, the physiology part is just understanding what the body needs to do and finding out, well, okay, body's not working very well today, and that's okay, because we all know that body changes every day. And we talk to them about, okay, are you waking up with your A body today, the what I call A plus body, or you're walking, or you're going to feel like maybe your body's not feeling so good today, maybe you're at a B level. But what happens is we go out and play golf and expect our body to be at A plus level every time, and again, with amateurs, they usually don't take care of their body as well as professionals, and they have a mindset that, well, I'm going to go ahead and I normally hit let's say my 7-iron 140 yards, and today I'm a B player, my body's kind of a B player, and they still have this mindset of being an A+, and they still keep pulling the 7-iron out to hit 140 yards, and it's only going 130.
Right.
And so we just we teach them about acceptance, about who they are as well, and it's all about self-management. Because, as we all know, day to day to day, our body changes, the golf course changes, so there's a lot of variables that change, and we just try to teach them about self-management. Yeah,
and that's an interesting point that you made, because a lot of golfers fall into this trap anyways, Sue, of under-clubbing, not picking enough club to execute the shot, and I think it's even more prevalent. As you said, when you wake up in the morning and maybe you don't have your A game, let's say, but you still think based on what you were working on a couple of days ago, okay, well, I'm hitting this club that far, so this is what I've got to do, and this is why I think it's so important for our amateurs that if you're going out to play a round of golf, that's why it's important to get there a little bit early and hit some shots out on the range just to kind of get a feel of what things are going to be for that day, because as you said, you might, in the best of times, might hit your club, your 7-iron 140 yards, but as you said, it's maybe only going 130 today. So that changes the dialogue that goes in your head and say, okay, I'm not hitting it as solid or as far as I normally hit today, so I've got to make some adjustments out in the course where it's applicable. And I think that's a very important point for amateurs really to take note of. I want to ask you one other thing, and then Cindy, I'm going to throw it back to you. I see here that you're the Director of Education for Yoga for Golfers. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what some of the benefits. We hear a lot about people getting into yoga for a multitude of reasons, but hearing a lot about golfers now as well, utilizing yoga to help. So how has it benefited you, and how has it benefited some of your students?
Oh, it is. Yoga has changed my life. I had breast cancer in the year 2000, and I had a double mastectomy, and I was in my 6 weeks of recovery, and Catherine Roberts called our golf course when she was just starting the Yoga for Golf program, and she wanted to just interview me as far as just, she was just kind of starting her program, and she brought a television crew out, and we were just standing on the putting green, and I would think I was like 5 weeks out of double mastectomy. I said, well, I can't swing. She goes, that's okay, we'll just putt. And she was the first one that ever taught me how to breathe correctly. It was amazing how much it freed up my putting stroke. She just taught me what we call deep belly breathing, because most people breathe up from their chest, and when you breathe in your chest, it's very stressful breathing. So that's one of the best techniques you can teach anyone to help change their physiology and help change their focus is the breathing, because most people, when we're under stress, we breathe up from our chest. So that's one of the techniques that I teach everybody in their pre-shot routine is let's check in with your breath. How are you breathing? Are you breathing in up from your chest, or are you breathing from your belly? Because we need to oxygenate the whole entire body. So the breathing was like life-changing for me. So anytime that I'm stressed or my player's stressed, the first thing I just asked them and said, okay, check in with your breath. Are you breathing correctly? Are you breathing stressful? Or are you having deep, refreshing, cleansing breath? That's one of the things. The other thing, as far as movement, yoga is so unbelievably good for the body, because just like in golf, we talk about 3 planes of movement. Well, yoga is one of the best type of exercises, and there's different types of yoga, but as far as the total body workout, you're working on 3 different planes of the body, and with rotation and stability and flexibility, those are all of the concepts we always talk about in golf. Those are the concepts that you're working on, the basic foundations within yoga is stability, flexibility, strength, and then obviously on the mindset. When you step onto a mat, it's the same thing as you're stepping over into a golf shot. What's your mental state? How do you feel? Because you have to go inside with yoga, and it challenges the body, definitely challenges the body, and it definitely challenges the mind. So it's a great complement for golf.
Yeah, I can certainly attest to that, and we've had the honor of course, having Catherine on the show a number of times over the years, and yeah, she's certainly one of the best. And something that Cindy, and I don't know whether you may recall this or not, but Sue, one of the things that Catherine was talking about was in reference to things like balance and sort of feeling, getting that feeling, especially as we get older, we start to, our nerves, if you will, and nerve endings and that start to, I guess, get a little more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but not debilitated, but just not functioning quite the same as when we were younger. And one of the exercises that she did with a lot of her students very early on is, especially her more mature students, is actually have them take off their shoes and socks and walk in the grass with just their bare feet.
Yes.
Because a lot of seniors, particularly, that's why. And I never even thought of this. I always thought it was more of a physicality thing, hips and things like that. But she said that what happens is on the balls of or on the soles of your feet, because those nerves over time start to decrease for a multitude of reasons. That's why you'll see a lot of elderly people will sort of wobble as they walk.
Yes.
And it's not just about balance. They don't feel, so they're become very unsteady. Cindy, I don't know if you recall that or not, but she talked a little bit about that. Yeah, I remember that. And
and I was
Sue,
so surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've done that too. You don't really think about it because we're for the most part we're wearing shoes all the time, and you don't really pay attention. And all of a sudden one day you wake up and you go to stand up and you're a little bit unsteady, and you just don't have that same sensation. So is that something that you try to help as well, Sue, with your students, is to help them get that feeling or understand what they should be feeling?
Oh, yes. I use balance pillows all the time. We take people, I always tell them, I said, without golf shoes, they go up on the balance pillows. We teach them about what their center feels like because once you get on a balance pillow, and it's not a Bosu ball, they're actually balance pillows. And once you teach someone what it feels like to be centered on the balance pillows, and then they step onto the ground in their bare feet, the ground just feels like so incredibly solid, and they're glued to the ground. And I said, let me ask you, do you ever feel like that on a golf shot? And they're like, no, because they don't have the feeling of centeredness. And we all know the ball doesn't move, so our center, we have to be really grounded. And that's especially with a lot of the women, they're not very centered when they're standing over the golf shot. And that's why they lose a lot of power, because they're moving off their center, what I call center of gravity. So they go from heels to toes, back and forth. But the best professional athletes golfers, you can look how centered they are and how solid they are over the golf shot. Even though there's, they might be moving a little bit in the pre-shot routine, they know what centeredness to the ground feels like. And so I totally agree in regards. In the retreats, we have people hit golf shots all the time in their bare feet because it's just, they're like, oh, this is different. And like, exactly, you need to feel something different to, as you say, waken up the senses.
Yeah, and that was something that was very interesting. And I never really looked at it from that perspective until Catherine came on the show and talked about that. And I thought, wow, Cindy said was something that I really didn't appreciate. Cindy, go ahead. I know you've got some more questions.
So, Sue, do you teach like normal lessons during the week? Do you have you teach students 1 hour lessons, half hour lessons?
Yes, I do one-on-ones, and then I do group, and then I have a golf movement 6 weeks program class. So people will come in and we'll teach them exactly what we're talking about. We'll teach them from the ground up. We teach them rotation. We teach them a little bit about golf stretches. We teach them about body in the sense of what is rotation, what is stability. We go through, it's a little bit of combination of, TPI. We do a little bit of disassociation assessments to find out, is their upper body flexible, is their lower body stable. We do that first off, and then we just kind of educate them about what is disassociation and finding out, what's limited in their body, and that's why they're, maybe not hitting the golf ball as far, such that. So it's a little combination of TPI, a little bit of yoga, a little bit of Tasada. It's kind of a blend with that golf movement class. But yes, I do all of that with juniors.
Yeah, that's awesome. On the one-on-one lessons, is there a prerequisite? Do they need to take the body movement? Do you give them a screen? Like if I moved to wherever you are and said, I really want to get better in the next 6 months, what are you going to do with me?
Yeah, the first thing I'll do an assessment just to find out. I'll check their balance, and then I'll check their disassociation of their upper body and their lower body. So it's a little bit of a TPI mini screening to find out, again, what's limiting. And then, of course, I'll ask them, any physical limitations, what's going on with the body. Because I just tell them, I said, if the body doesn't show up, the golf swing's not going to show up. It's going to, or in a sense of how your body shows up is how your golf swing shows up in that sense. They're just too interrelated. And I really teach them about the body, as the body. So that's how I would do with them. And then we talk about, okay, here's the body, the assessment, and then here's what's going on in your golf swing, and here's probably why. And then we kind of set up a plan from there.
Would you ask them to take
Go ahead.
Would you ask them to take the 6-week course?
Yes, I would say here's what I offer, and this is what. And then I've been this last summer I ran a lot of them indoors because it's so lovely hot here. So I have a lot of video that I've taken. I have a lot of video that I've taken. So I will send them a sample of just a video clip of what it entails, so they can kind of see that it's like, oh, it's not a yoga class, because I know a lot of people are afraid of the word yoga. So that's why I've changed it to golf movement, because I want it to be golf. It's about moving. So I'll just send them a quick little a clip of, here's a sample of the video. So it's not like too intimidating. Most of the people that I've been in my class are actually older gentlemen that are losing distance and are losing flexibility. And it's that senior men golfer that, they're not hitting it as far anymore. They're becoming frustrated in their game. Like, well, why can't I hit it any farther? Well, it's because of the body. So we just teach them about it. And I have many testimonials with the gentlemen that have gone through the program. They're amazed on how crisper they're hitting the golf ball, and they're gaining their distance back because they're understanding what their body needs to do.
That's great.
It's a lot of fun. I love the classes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, it's like anything else, Sue. I think education is probably the key factor in being a great golfer or whatever it is that you choose to do. I think the knowledge is power, as we've heard so many times. And I think that when people understand what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong and have it explained in as simple a way as possible, it's amazing the revelation they have. It's like, wow, I never thought of it that way, or I didn't, and I think that's why it's important, as Cindy pointed out, that, when you have a new student coming, that we do some assessment and kind of get to know that person a little bit on a one-on-one, or even in a group setting, but just to get to know the individuals a little bit and understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling, because it can make a big difference. One of the worst things I think as an instructor that you can do is try to teach them based on your understanding without really getting to know that individual first. Obviously some people are visual learners and others learn different ways. So if we try to do things one way and without really consulting them first, a lot of times they're just sort of, their eyes are rolling in the back of their head like a slot machine, and they just don't get it and become frustrated. No, it's true. They become frustrated, and the next thing you know, they're not coming back. So I think that's something that as instructors we have to be mindful of. All right, Sue, let's talk a little bit about your new book, Golf the Last 6 Inches. I think we can pretty much guess what the 6 inches you're talking about, but explain a little bit about how this came about and what you're trying to relay in the new book.
Yeah, the Golf Last 6 Inches, it was just a brainchild of mine. I started doing, mental retreats, mind and body retreats. And I've been doing the mind and body retreats for, probably 7-8 years now. And just put the program together. And then I thought, I just need to write a book and put all this stuff in a book and share it with other people. And so that's where it came out to be. And it's like, I've always wanted to write a book. Everybody says it's the hardest thing you ever could do, which is true. It's just one of those things that you really have to stay committed to and finish. And it was just like I said with the, like I said earlier, is that most people have the formula that thinking that if I go to the range and hit golf balls, I'm going to get better. And every time I ask, when I do a group or when I speak in front of a group, the first question I ask is, how mental is the game of golf? Give me a percentage. And everyone says at least 50 or 90 or 80, and the average is, at least 70 or 80%. And I said, okay, so if it's golf is 80% mental, what are you doing for the mental side of golf? And they kind of just had that, deer in the headlight look, like, well, I'm really not. And so that's why I started to create the book. I'm like, well, this is how, because people don't know how to train mentally. They think that they know how to train physically, or I should say using the skill sets, like, okay, I'm supposed to go to the range, or I'm supposed to go putt, or I'm supposed to go chip. But the mental side, yes, Vision 54 is out there, Dr. Bob Rotello, there's such good information out there, but we just need to apply it more. And that's why I came up with the book. And I now have a ACE Performance workbook that's a companion journal that goes with the book, so that you read a chapter and then you do some exercises, then you read a chapter and then you do some exercises, so you can take those, so you can experience it. And that's what I do with my retreats. They actually go through the journal throughout the retreat, and so they can apply the learning. And then we go on the golf course and we, we'll go work on our focus, or we'll go work on our language, or we'll go work on our physiology. So we take those pieces and we actually get onto the golf course and we think about that and we actually apply it instead of just, oh, here's a book, go read it. Well, that's great information, but what are you doing with it? How do you apply it? Are you experiencing with it? What are you learning about yourself while you're going through it?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, having the accompanying journal like that, because you're right. I mean, people will read the book and it's great and there's lots of good information in it, but then if you're not actually applying it, you soon sort of forget a lot of that stuff. And then it also gives you an opportunity to review things that you've read through the book by, working through a journal like that. I think that's a great idea. And I think a lot of people probably just don't realize, as you said, when you talk to them and ask them about the mental side of golf, they'll certainly give you a percentage or a figure that's much higher than what you'd expect to hear from them, but at the same time they're doing absolutely nothing to train that part, and they're just spending hour after hour out in the golf practice tee, banging balls, and Cindy said raking and hitting balls, but not really doing anything, because then when they get in the golf course, the big question in their mind is, well, why can't I take my range game? I'm hitting them beautiful here on the range, but when I get out on the golf course, I suck. Why is that happening? Well, it's because, they're not calming and relaxing themselves when they get out on the golf course. They're standing over the ball thinking 20 different things, and it's no wonder they can't hit the thing. So I think that's a great idea. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's just that, golf is the only sport in the world that we don't practice on the practice field. And I think that's very shameful. I think the golf industry just needs to figure out a way to get players on the golf course to learn, not necessarily just play. And, it's like, book a tee time and everybody's in a rush. And it's just, when I coached basketball way back in the day, where would we go practice our dribbling? We practice right on the court. We wouldn't go, in the parking lot to go practice. We go right down the court. So I think we just need to get more players on the golf course to learn. And I know Vision 54 does a great job with that, and that's what they promote. I just think the golf industry needs to figure out a way is how can we set up, practice facilities so that we can create that type of environment for it's a learning type of environment instead of, like Cindy says, rake and hit, because that's the old traditional way.
I think I'd like to see a lot. You're exactly right. I'd like to see, and Cindy, you and I have mentioned this a couple times on the show over the years. I would love to see more executive type courses. I love some of these great, big, beautiful courses that we have here, but at the same time, I think some shorter, par 3 courses and not even necessarily, 18-hole or even 9-hole, maybe just 3-hole executive golf centers or facilities that people can go and just get out there and sort of train and work on their games a little bit without, worrying about the 5 groups that are standing on the tee box behind them, tapping their finger on the cart, waiting for them to move on. So I just think sometimes, we as an industry, maybe we need to look at making that more of a staple for teaching and not just always taking them out to some nice resort course or some, high-end facility where they're not really prepared for it quite yet. So just a thought. Where can those tuning into the show, Sue, if they're interested in getting a copy of the book, where can they go about doing that?
You can get it on Amazon. You just, type in Golf the Last 6 Inches. It'll pop up right on there. If they want a signed copy, just have them email me at swieger or swieger@gmail.com. And then I also have a complimentary mental golf ebook that they can get for free. They just have to go to golf-the-last6inches.com, and they just put their email address in, and they can get a 17-page complimentary mental golf ebook. A lot of the concepts that we talked about are in that ebook, so it's complimentary.
Okay. Very good.
That's great.
And I think they can also, you have a link, I believe, on your website. Is that correct? That if they are visiting your website, SueWiegerGolf.com, they can click on there and find out how to get the book from there as well, correct?
Yes, that is correct. There's an Amazon link on there. It takes them right to the Amazon link. That is correct.
Perfect. Cindy, any final thoughts or questions that you have for Sue?
No, I'm so glad you joined us this morning. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge.
Thank you, Cindy, and again, congratulations on launching Phase Golf. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with all of that.
Thank you. Me too.
Well, if I can be of any service, let me know. I just love what you and Pat and the ladies are doing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Sue. Well, thank you very much for taking time to join us early this morning on the Women of Golf Show. We appreciate it, and best of luck with the book, and keep out there helping all of those golfers, both male and female, out there to go out and have some fun with this game. So we appreciate you taking time this morning and sharing that. And make sure you visit Amazon.com for those of you tuning into the show this morning to get a copy of Sue's new book, Golf the Last 6 Inches. It's a great read. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Ted. Cindy, have a great day, and stay warm up there in Buffalo, Cindy.
You do the same. Bye-bye.
I will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was our very special guest, Sue Wieger. And you can learn more about some of the different programs that she does by visiting SueWiegerGolf.com, and it's W-I-E-G-E-R is the correct spelling of her last name. So it's SUEWIEGER golf.com. And again, visit Amazon.com to get a copy of her book, Golf, The Last 6 Inches. Well, Cindy, I know that we've got to wrap up a little bit earlier. We were planning on doing a little bit of a discussion on some golf tips, some commonly asked questions in golf, but I think what we'll do is we'll save that for the next show, which will be on I believe the 27th, when we're going to be joined by, if I'm not mistaken, Brendan Cooper. Is that correct?
Brendan Sweeney from French Lick Resort.
I'm sorry, Brendan Sweeney. My apologies. Brendan Sweeney will be joining us from French Lick. The end of the month, we're going to be off, of course, next week for observance of the Thanksgiving holiday. So we won't have a show next week, but we'll be back the following week on the 27th with Brendan Sweeney from French Lick. So we'll follow up with our discussion that we were planning on having today. So, Cindy, as always, thank you. And thank you to the listeners each and every week for faithfully tuning in to the Women of Golf Show. We appreciate it very much. God bless everybody. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye. Thanks, Cindy.
Bye-bye.